Welcome, Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers to the latest edition of the Pewter Report podcast. I'm Scott Reynolds. Right alongside me there is Mark Cook. Say hello to everybody, Mark.
Hello, everybody.
There you go.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great, man. I am going through your mock draft right now, Scott. Not to tease what we're going to talk about today, but I like it. I like it a lot, and hopefully people will see your reasoning behind some of these picks. There's some real interesting prospects in here. Can't wait to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, and we had Warren Sapp lined up. I just got a text from Warren. He is stuck in traffic, and he was on yesterday's show and had some connection issues. He's driving to his mom's house to get better Wi-Fi. He's going to visit mom today, but he even sent me his GPS coordinates, and it says he's not going to be out of traffic for another hour and 12 minutes. So we're going to pass on having Warren today. We'll continue to talk about some of the edge rushers, Mark, and one of those edge rushers we're going to talk about is the guy we had atop of the new Pewter Report 7-round Bucs mock draft. And if you hadn't had a chance to check it out yet on pewterreport.com, do so, because we do have him in there. That person is Texas outside linebacker Joseph Acai. This is a guy that had a really interesting background, coming from Nigeria to Houston as a teenager and not even having any introduction to football until he was in high school. But he grew up playing soccer, very good athlete, and once he put the pads on, he loved it and worked his way around the recruiting circuit to get a bunch of offers. He decided to become a Texas Longhorn, and after 3 good years at Texas, he left and is going to be probably a first or early second round pick in this year's draft. And Mark, as you said on the show yesterday, when you're picking 32, it's a first rounder. It's also kind of like a second rounder because you're right there on the cusp. So Joseph Acai is the pick for the Bucs in our latest mock draft on pewterreport.com.
I like it better than those defensive line prospects. And there's been a lot of mocks having the Buccaneers drafting, one of the defensive tackles in this class. And I'm not going solely on what Warren Sapp said about Christian Barmore, but I'm not a talent evaluator, certainly not a GM or even a scout. But I don't know that I saw him as a 32 guy either. I was thinking I wouldn't mind having the guy, maybe if the team moved down a little bit in the second round, but he'll probably be gone. Although Warren doesn't think so. His reputation, his pedigree from Alabama, those kind of things, the success that some of the young defensive linemen from Alabama have had recently will probably get him pushed up in there. And the fact that he's probably the best of not a very good class of that. So anyway, but I like the Acai pick. I still think the Buccaneers have a good chance of moving down. I think there's going to be a team up there that's going to fall in love with somebody and want to get that 5th-year option type situation on them and offer the Buccaneers a little bit more. And is there here's what Jason Light and his staff are going to have to figure out, Scott. Is there a difference between the guy they have at 32 or the best player available kind of guy and say mid-second round? And, then they have 2 second-round picks. So there's a lot of things, and we don't know what that draft board looks like, and it's still being set up as we speak. The Buccaneers don't have it completely set yet either. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. A lot of options at 32. I like that. I like that spot, honestly, because I think they can trade back and pick up some more capital down the road.
Yeah, and I think the thing too, and I learned some other things about Christian Barmore in a conversation I had with Sapp today that I really can't share, but I would be surprised if he goes in the first round. I'm with Warren on that.
Are you going to bet your social media reputation? Are you going to ban yourself for a year?
Nope. No? And the reason why I'm not going to do that is because there's some dumb NFL teams out there, and the Buccaneers have been dumb in the past too, right? I mean, so it's just I would not take Christian Barmore in the first round. I wouldn't take him at 32 if I'm the Buccaneers, and I'll just say this: I'm not sure the kid loves football, and I've never met the man. I'm going based on secondhand information, but I've just heard and seen some things to where I question that, and And you know what? When you're drafting in the first round, whether it's number 1 overall, number 10 overall, number 32 overall, you've got to be
Absolutely,
drafting a player that you're going to stand up on the table for, and that player better love football. And there's been a couple guys that this quote that we learned under John Gruden, Mark, from back in the day. It's like there's things. There's two kind of NFL guys out there. There's players and players, and the players are the guys that you see up in the Bucs Ring of Honor. Those are players. Those are guys that just absolutely love the game of football. And I mean, the money's one thing. This is a kid's game where you get paid with a king's ransom, but you don't last long if you don't love the game. And when you look at a career like Derek Brooks, right? One team, one player. Mike Allstott the same way. Rondé Barber. What did Rondé play? Like 17, 19, 22 years for the Buccaneers, something like that.
33 years. He started in 79. Yeah.
33 years. So yeah, it's certainly you have to have that love. If you want to be great, if you want to be a great player, a perennial Pro Bowl player, a guy that if things go right in your career from a health standpoint, that you can be up in a Ring of Honor or you can be considered for the Hall of Fame, you better love the game.
Yeah.
And you look at some of the players on this Buccaneer team, right? I mean, Shaq Barrett loves the game. Jason Pierre-Paul loves the game. Tom Brady absolutely loves the game, right? And there's other players too. Mike Evans loves the game, right? And these are players that are great because they want to be great. It's not about just showing up, putting on an NFL jersey, and collecting the check every Friday. Yeah. And I'm not saying that Christian Barmore is necessarily like that, but based on what I heard, I'm just a little gun shy about him. And also, too, this defensive line draft from the tackle position is not good. We really have seen some guys, I think, get overinflated. Davion Nixon from Iowa is a guy that Sapp said yesterday is not a huge fan of. Levi Onwuzurike, who the Washington kid, who really, we had and the Bucs taking with the 32nd overall pick and the second mock draft that we did. That might be a little bit of a reach. And if you're going to reach, it's only because this is not a good class. But I think that you look at an outside linebacker like Joseph Acai, that's a player I can kind of wrap my head around in terms of drafting. We had Javonte Williams as a running back. If you followed us on Twitter, you know that we love Najee Harris, Travis Etienne. I'm not sure those guys are going to be there, but a running back makes a lot of sense at 32 because that's a player that can see the field. But Mark, when you look at Shaq Barrett re-signing for 4 years, you got one spot locked in on the bookend pass rushers, but Jason Pierre-Paul, age 31, having knee surgery in back-to-back years in the offseason, might be time to find a young edge rusher that can sit and learn from those guys, be a situational pass rusher for a year or two, and then eventually take over for JPP.
They're going to have to eventually. And, again, the salary cap is going to go up next year. So if JPP does retire and they don't develop one this year, they're going to have to go out and find one in free agency. But if they do, they're going to spend a lot of money. We saw that. I mean, Shaq Barrett, I agree with Warren Sapp. I think he could have got more money, to be honest with you. I think, in what Shaq told JPP, or actually what his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, told Sapp was, the salary cap. And honestly, I think it came down to Shaq Barrett wanting to be here in Tampa Bay. Didn't even want to get into bidding wars. Knew he wanted to be back here in Tampa Bay. It probably took a little bit less than what he could have gotten on the open market. When you look at what some of the other pass rushers, and there haven't been a ton of them signed, but when you look at what some of them have gotten that don't have the production that Shaq Barrett has, I can see where Warren's coming from. But again, that's a testament, though, to the culture that this football team has been able to build, the success, the Tom Brady's, the Bruce Arians, just the overall change. Scott, I wrote about it a couple weeks ago. man. I mean, I remember when George, what was his name? George, George Johnson, right, was going to be counted on to be a pass rusher for this football team. I remember the coaches talking this guy up, and now you're trying to, figure out, JPP and Shaq, which one of those guys are you going to pay? And you end up paying both of them. It's just an amazing, really turnaround in really a short period of time. I mean, it's been a long time before this year, before the Bucs went to the playoffs, but they really did a great job. But you look at 2016, I don't think anybody in their right mind, if they're a Buccaneer fan, after that draft, and especially the lack of success in that draft, even in 2017 would have said this is a Super Bowl winning football team just 3 years later or 4 years later. And here they are with a chance to repeat. So they've got to find these guys. They got to develop them, because if you don't, you're going to pay through the nose in free agency. And again, yes, the salary cap's going up, but Buccaneers have a lot of free agents that are going to be on the table next year just as well. So, it's not going to be easy.
You're talking about that 2016 draft. Nobody is left from that 2016 draft. They're all gone. And that was the year where they drafted an edge rusher in the second round that Noah Spence. And he just didn't pan out. Neither did Roberto Aguayo in the second round or the first round pick, Vernon Hargreaves. He's barely hanging on in the NFL. I think he re-signed with Houston, but that's become a dumpster fire of a franchise.
And Noah Spence is, still hanging around. Roberto Aguayo was signed. I think the Patriots have him going to be in camp this year. But he was out of football for 2 whole years. And it just, even when you miss on a draft pick, general managers can look back and say, okay, you know what? Jason Light could actually put a small feather in his cap for a guy like Danny Vitale, right? Who got cut here, didn't make the football team, but goes on to Green Bay. At a 7th round pick. But I'm saying, these guys are still in the league. So you can put a minor.
You don't get credit for a 7th round fullback, Mark. You don't.
But that's even better, Scott. A 7th round guy that's still in the league 5 years later. I mean, that's it didn't work out here. I'm just saying, you want, if you're going to have a bad draft, you hope at least if they didn't work out with your team that they stick around in the league a little bit. You know what I mean? You don't want him to be a Charles McRae where they play a couple of years, you get rid of him, and he's never heard from again.
Yeah, I'm not sure, what happened after that draft. But something happened, and the Bucs got really, really good at drafting. In 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, they built this team. I would
except
say,
for MJ Stewart. MJ Stewart's still a bad.
Well, I mean, listen, you can't have all of those draft picks hit.
Scott, first round success rate in 5 years in the NFL on average is only 50%. That's in the first round. It only goes down after that.
It's hit or miss.
So I was joking about MJ Stewart.
The one thing that is not hit or miss though is Celsius. I've already had mine today. I've crushed I would say orange. I had the orange sickle yesterday. I had the grape today just to mix it up because I went orange on Sunday, then I went orange sickle yesterday, and now I get the Celsius grape. And not just that, Mark. We got a brand new Mark, the refreshing taste of Celsius. It's one of those things that it's like the gift that keeps on giving, when you have a Celsius, because you get that energy rush that you need, but you don't get that sugar crash. Why? Because it has no sugar. So you get the energy rush with no crash because no sugar, no preservatives in your Celsius. Now, the best way to get Celsius, of course, go to pewterreport.com, click on those Celsius banners. They'll take you to Amazon where you can sip away all of your troubles and save money by subscribing in bulk. If you want to find out where to get Celsius near you, go to Celsius.com, click on the store locator, and then hit your address, and boom, Celsius locations will pop up in nearby convenience stores, health and fitness places, and grocery stores. So be sure to check out Celsius.com.
And you're right, the non-crash factor. Scott, I remember when I was a young Buccaneer Pewter reporter, you would send me down to a little Quick Mart on MLK and make me buy you 5-hour energies. Remember that?
Yeah.
You'd be like, go get me 2 5-hour energies. And they were great. I mean, for an hour, you were pumped up, right? by the end of the day, you were like Weekend at Bernie's over in your chair next to me, and I'd have to slap you to keep you awake during press conferences.
Because I would have to, after the first crash, take another one to get them back up. So that's why with Celsius, you don't have to worry about that. That's the cool thing. So let's go through the mock draft here. If you're just joining us, we apologize. Warren Sapp is not able to join us. He is stuck in traffic. He was driving to his mom's house to get better Wi-Fi signal. So we appreciate the effort there. We'll have him on at another time.
But his mom lives in Apopka. Now, do you really think, I mean, Warren's in Miami, and I just can't imagine, out in the middle of an orange grove.
He's not driving. Okay. He's not driving there just to be on the Pewter Report podcast. He was driving to mom's house to see mom, and steal her Wi-Fi, and borrow some bandwidth. So we don't blame
I guarantee you he was going to get a couple good meals too, some good home cooked mama meals. Yeah,
of course. There's no doubt about it. So instead, we're going to be talking about the Bucs 7-round mock draft 3.0 from PewterReport.com. We already talked about Joseph Acai. This is a guy, Mark, that just to wrap up, played off the ball linebacker at Texas in his first season as a starter in 2019. 90 tackles, 13.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks as a blitzer, 2 interceptions, shows his range as a player that can go north-south, not just downhill towards the line of scrimmage, but also can drop in coverage. Had a forced fumble, and then at the end of the 2019 campaign in that Alamo Bowl versus Utah, they really kind of stood him up and had him be a pass rusher. He finished with 3 sacks in that game. That's one of 2 3-sack games that he's had in his career. The other one happened last year, and that was a year where he was really a full-time edge guy for the first time in his career. So kind of like Vita Vea, you're getting a guy with a high ceiling. Vita Vea was a running back in high school, then became a defensive tackle really for the first time at Washington, only played 3 years there, then joined the Buccaneers, right? So this is a guy who's got a high upside. He's got a high ceiling. 15.5 tackles for loss last year, 5.5 sacks, only played in 9 games due to the COVID-shortened season. But really had a fantastic game with 3 of those sacks coming in against Oklahoma State, including a sack to end the game as a defensive guy. I love that. End the game on a sack. That's a phenomenal way to do it. That's fumble and a fumble recovery.
Yeah, that's a Sapp trait, right? Closing out the game, final play, get the sack, demoralize the team in front of you and pump your team up. Again, we keep reiterating this point, but even if he's not a top 15 pass rusher, again, the Buccaneers have a little bit of time here, right? I mean, who better for him to learn from 2 different styles of pass rushers? You've got you've got JPP with 10 years of history of moves and however many years he's been in the league, a wide variety of different type moves. And then you've got that quick edge burst with Shaq Barrett, who's still learning, some of the things with his hands and things like that. So, what a great place to take a guy like a Joseph Acai, a guy who doesn't have a ton of, like you say, football experience because of his background. And you mentioned another player like that, but let's not forget Mike Evans, who had 1 year of high school football before only playing 2 years at Texas A&M. I mean, another guy.
Pretty well for Mike,
Yeah, it worked out good for Vea. It's worked out good for Mike. Could work out good for this kid too. And again, no pressure to get him on the field. No pressure. This isn't Leonard Floyd. This isn't some of these other pass rushers over the last few years that Buccaneer fans were clamoring to get on the football field or to draft and get on the football field right away. You don't have to have this guy out there, 70% of the defensive snaps.
Yeah. And the thing is, he can come in as a situational pass rusher because you're going to kick Jason Pierre-Paul inside anyways. He does a fantastic job rushing there. But Mark, you mentioned those 2 guys, Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul. Jason Pierre-Paul is kind of a long, lanky, Gumby, flexible type of pass rusher. And then you've got kind of a shorter guy and Shaq, who's just under 6'2", 250 pounds. JPP is a bigger guy, 265. And so Acai's kind of like right in between, 6'4", about 254 pounds. So he's a little bit closer to the weight right now of Shaq Barrett. I think he's got the frame you could put on another 5 or 10 pounds. Yeah. But he's got these longer arms, a little bit of a taller guy like Jason Pierre-Paul, who's 6'5". So I think he can really identify and relate to both of those guys and kind of take some from each of those guys and add them to his game. So and we've had some questions about Aziz Ajalari from Georgia, kind of the same type of player. I think Ajalari is a little bit more polished and probably goes before the 32nd overall pick. That's why we have Acai here. Let's go to the second round. Wisconsin Whitewater center Quinn Miners. This is a player that we had in our first mock draft in the third round, but he's got a lot of buzz. And this is a player that had a fantastic pro day. The Bucs were there at Wisconsin Whitewater. This is a big guy, 6'3", 320 pounds, started the Senior Bowl, didn't play last year because of COVID-19. Those FCS schools and the smaller division schools didn't play. But he ran a 4.9 and a 40-yard dash with his belly hanging out in the cold. 32-inch vertical, 9'3" broad jump. Those are really good numbers for offensive linemen. And keep in mind, Ryan Jensen is 30 years old. He's in a contract year. Alex Kappa, Aaron Stinney are in contract years. At the guard position, he played left guard at Wisconsin Whitewater. And if you go to his Twitter profile, he's a player that really likes and admires Ryan Jensen, Ali Marpet. He's talked about those players and retweeted some of their stuff. So I think that he would be a good fit.
Is he a nasty guy? Is he one of those physical nasty guys? Is he like a Ryan Jensen?
Long hair and he's nasty. He's like Kappa. He's like Jensen. He'll fit in perfect in that room. And he's a small school guy who played at the Senior Bowl, just like Kappa did from Humboldt State, just like Ali Marpet did from Hobart College. So he checks a lot of those Jason Light boxes, and I think he's going to come into league with the chip on his shoulder. So.
Sorry, I'm plugging in my computer. John's going to be mad. This isn't very professional. Sorry, but I don't want it to go dead right in the middle of it. So I apologize. Right. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So we had a situation where he was in the third round, Mark, and I think that he's going to go probably somewhere in the early part of the third round. The problem is the Buccaneers don't pick till late in the third round. So if they want him, you're going to have to get him at the 64th overall pick, and guess what? That's almost a third round pick. So,
Scott, you talked about Ryan Jensen, who's going to be entering in his final year. From your conversations that you've had, probably off the record, but what have you kind of gotten from the Buccaneers as far as how they feel? I mean, is Ryan Jensen a guy that they think has another 3 years left in the tank? Is he a guy that's a possibility even for an extension this year to help them a little bit with the salary cap and as they've been able to be creative this offseason?
Yeah, I think that they would like to get Donovan Smith done first. I don't know that necessarily happens, but Donovan Smith, that's a player where they're looking at finding some ways to create some cap space. Because if you want to re-sign Ndamukong Suh, if you want to re-sign Leonard Fournette, if you want to re-sign Antonio Brown and Blaine Gabbert, and those are four guys on the Bucs radar that they want to have back on the Super Bowl team, you got to create some more cap room. That's one of the ways to do it, to extend a Ryan Jensen for maybe another year, to do a multi-year extension, 2 or 3 more years for Donovan Smith and give him a raise. You might have to go to Ali Marpet and do a restructure. You might have to cut Cam Brate. You might have to do a pay cut with Cam Brate. All options are on the table right now, but something's got to give from a financial standpoint to create some more cap room. So I do think they would like to keep Ryan Jensen around for another year, and they'll have him for 2021. This is his last year of his contract. I think attacking makes sense. And drafting a player like Miners, you got your heir apparent to Ryan Jensen right there. Yeah,
you do. And, if you add, another year or even 2 to Jensen, you've still got a center for the future. You mentioned Donovan Smith. Something that was kind of telling to me, I believe it was Trent Williams who re-signed a big contract worth over $20 million a year. And Donovan Smith was quick to retweet that and say, go get that money, big guy, or something like that. As soon as I saw that, I was like, man, I don't know that they're going to get a Shaq Barrett team-friendly deal out of Donovan Smith, to be honest with you.
No, but the thing is right now he at $14.25 million. You can lower that cap number by extending him and then having one of those years, shoot way up. But I think you could extend Donovan Smith at about $16 million per year. I think that's reasonable. That puts him.
I think that's fair. I just don't. Yeah. I just think he may be one of those guys that wants to shoot for the moon. I mean, we talk about Shaq Barrett not wanting to even get out in the free agency market. I mean, they signed Shaq, re-signed him, or came to an agreement.
Donovan wanting to test free agency. Yeah, I can see that for sure.
And if he gets out in free agency and he has another year, or if he has another year like he did late last year, his value is going to go through the roof.
He'll be a top 5 left tackle. And other Buccaneer fans that don't believe that's the case, but if that does happen, he will be the highest. Well, I shouldn't say the highest, but a top 5 highest paid offensive tackle. You're right. So believe it or not, we kept it on the offensive side in the 3rd round. We're going to have a center snap to a quarterback. Round 3, Texas A&M quarterback Kellen Mond. This would be the 2nd time the Buccaneers have gotten a Jimbo Fisher quarterback back in 2015. Mark, who was that guy at Florida State?
Casey Weldon?
No, not Casey.
Brad Johnson?
More recent than Brad Johnson.
I have no recollection of who you're talking about.
Jameis Winston.
Not familiar.
Jameis Winston. Yeah.
Oh, the Saints starting quarterback, that guy.
Yes. Well, let's not rush things. Taysom Hill would object to that, but so I think Kellen Mond is an interesting fit because he's an athletic quarterback. You look at the rushing yards and the touchdowns that he scored on the ground. This is a guy that is mobile. Rushed for 1,600 yards and 22 touchdowns while averaging 3.7 yards per carry at Texas A&M. But he's a pocket passer, and that's music to Bruce Arians' ears because he loves pocket passers. I thought he showed really well at the Senior Bowl, went down there and was the game's MVP, completing 13 to 25 passes for 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, also had a pair of 2-point conversions. And really, I think up to stock. I think that he is a 3rd or 4th round pick. And again, the Buccaneers picking at the end of the 3rd round, though, not at the end because you have the compensatory picks to begin in the 3rd round, but picking at the end of the normal part of the 3rd round. Kellen Mond at around 6'3", 205 pounds. He's got to add a little bit more size, but he's got a live arm, likes to push the ball down the field. What I liked about him is he improved his accuracy every year. And Jimbo Fisher is a noted guy with quarterbacks and went from 57.3% as a sophomore to 61.6% and then 63.3%. And he became the all-time leading passer at Texas A&M with just under 10,000 passing yards, 71 touchdowns and 27 interceptions. Now, this is the thing I like about him, Mark. When you look at the touchdown to interception ratio, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions as a sophomore, 20 touchdown, 9 interceptions as a junior in 13 games. As a senior, he only had 10 games because of the COVID shortened season, but he had 19 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. So I like the growth that I see there. We don't like quarterbacks that turn the ball over, Mark.
No, we definitely don't. We know Bruce Arians doesn't as well. Of the mock draft picks, Scott, that was the one that probably raised my eyebrows the most. I mean, you told me who you were going to pick, and that one was a little bit surprising to me. I certainly watched a lot of Texas A&M games. I don't know if I like or hate Jimbo Fisher. Florida State fans, we're bipolar when it comes to that, but certainly when Texas A&M beats the Gators like they did this year, I'm a huge Jimbo Fisher fan. But I watched a lot of Texas A&M games. Mond is one of those streaky guys. I mean, he can get really, really hot, and then he can go through a couple series where you're like, and you just see Jimbo on the sideline just screaming. You can read his lips. What in the blank are you doing? And can be very frustrating. But again, look, Clyde Christensen, Byron Leftwich, Bruce Arians. I mean, he's not going to come to a better situation in the NFL to develop as an NFL quarterback. And let's not forget, he's got a pretty decent guy in front of him that he would learn from in that meeting room as well, too. So don't hate the pick. It was probably just a little bit the most surprising one. Yeah,
and I think the thing too is when you look at the trend in the league, and certainly taking nothing away from Tom Brady, right? I mean, he's the greatest quarterback of all time, but you're seeing the mobility of quarterbacks coming into play because those defensive linemen and edge rushers and blitzing linebackers are not getting slower, Mark. They're getting faster.
Right.
And you're seeing the Lamar Jacksons, you're seeing the Patrick Mahomes. Mobility is a thing. Like, you got to be able to have some escapability. You don't have to necessarily be a scrambler like a Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, where you're going to run for 100 yards in a game. But being able to elude the pressure, and just keep in mind, Patrick Mahomes, he's a pocket passer, but he's got mobility.
Right.
But that guy was on the run the entire Super Bowl, getting chased by Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul and Dominic Sue and the rest of the Buccaneers. But and he also almost made some fantastic throws on the run. But so I think that's the element that you're going to see a lot of these quarterbacks having. I think that the pocket passers are still going to be around, but not the guys that are running 5-1s and 5-2s. You got to have some escapability, and I think that we even saw Mac Jones today have some really good times. I think he was what were Mac Jones's times, around 4.8 or so.
He had a solid pro day. Yeah. I mean, I think he ran a little faster than I expected him to.
Yeah.
And you know what? There are some mocks, and we've had people in the comment section saying that, there's Bucky Brooks has him slipping all the way down to 32 to the Buccaneers.
I don't see that happening.
I don't either.
And here's the thing. I know the Buccaneers like Mac Jones, and if he's there at 32, I would not be shocked if the Bucs take him. I just wouldn't. But I don't think he falls past the Saints at 28. I think that might be the end of the road there. Obviously, you look later in the draft, and you've got Buffalo. They're set with Josh Allen. I think Kansas City set with Patrick Mahomes. A little shaky.
He might pan out. Yeah,
but they might hang on to Patrick Mahomes. But no, I think that if he's there, he's a guy on the Bucs radar. And you heard Jason Light say that at the press conference. Might even said it on our podcast too, Mark. That when you look at picking 32, you can take some luxuries. If you fill all your holes in free agency, and they bring back guys like Ndamukong Suh, bring back a running back like Leonard Fournette. There's not a lot of holes in this team.
And that was my reasoning when I wrote about Kyle Trask last month. Yeah. I mean, Kyle Trask is not a top 15 NFL quarterback, but he may end up being. I mean, you just don't know. And again, having the luxury of not having many holes in this football team and an opportunity for, again, he's never going to be in a better situation than to sit behind a guy like Tom Brady. And a lot of people are saying, well, you can't do that anymore with the quarterbacks. They have to start right away. I mean, the Packers did it last year. The Packers did it, with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, and they did it again last year as well with Love. So, you can't say it can't be done. If you're picking him in the first round, then you do have that 5th-year option. So you're going to have him for at least 5 years, even if Brady does play for another 2, maybe even 3, but at least 2 more years. You're still going to have 3 years with a guy minimum at that point. And you'll know what you have. Here's something interesting, Scott, that I don't know that we talked about on the podcast. Josh Rosen, a guy that was a former number 1 draft pick by the Cardinals a couple years ago, was traded to Miami, was cut by Miami. The Buccaneers picked him up this year. And I thought that was a great move by them because, again, they got nothing to lose. They've got Gabbert. They've got Brady. They had Ryan Griffin. They didn't need a quarterback, but let's see what this guy has. So they put him on the practice squad. Well, they didn't protect him towards the end of the year, and they determined, from our understanding, that he's a talented football player, but he's just not the right fit for this football team. My whole point of saying that is if you draft a Mac Jones or Kyle Trask at number 32, again, if they don't pan out for whatever reason, you're not hurting your franchise as much as when you're taking the number 1 overall pick with a quarterback as it did in 2015. And you'll know after 2 years because you're not forcing either of those guys to go out and play as a rookie. You'll give them time to develop. And again, they'll have an opportunity to show you not in game action as much as off the field. And that's why the Buccaneers determined Josh Rosen wasn't their guy for the future. He didn't get in any of those games. He wasn't even active on the roster, but they saw it in practice, him running scout squads and the other things that he just didn't have the right intangible that they were looking for. And that's why they allowed him to sign with San Francisco.
It's not all about just slinging the rock. It's having that leadership ability. It's being able to command the huddle and have guys follow you. You got to believe. I mean, that's one thing Tom Brady, that we've heard the Buccaneier players say, he texted them every night, believe, leading up to the Super Bowl. And by game day, they all did.
Telling these guys after the Kansas City game, we're not going to lose again, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, if you would have polled me, you, John, Matt, and Taylor after that Kansas City game, Scott, and I don't care what odds you would have given me, I wouldn't have put any more money on the Bucs completely running the table and winning the Super Bowl after that game ended. I mean, at that point, I was just hoping they made the playoffs. But yet, Tom Brady knew. Tom Brady had a feeling. And Bruce Arians talked about it too. He thought the turnaround of this season wasn't necessarily the bye week. It was the second half of that Chiefs game.
Yeah. Well, and not just that too, but I mean, once they beat the Saints in New Orleans, I knew that they were going to win the Super Bowl. Matter of fact, I put my money where my mouth was. I went right to my bookie, Mark. I went to my bookie. and I made some serious cash against the Packers and then against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, picking the Buccaneers. And if you haven't noticed, folks, March is here, and that means the madness has officially begun, right? It's time for you to shoot your shot, score big on the nonstop action at MyBookie. Select the winners from 63 tournament games in the MyBookie bracket contest for a chance to win $10,000 in cash prizes. It's only $1 to enter. It doesn't matter whether you're filling out multiple brackets, betting on the national championship winner, or looking for a player and game props. MyBookie has you covered. Sign up today at mybookie.ag and use the promo code PEWTER to secure a deposit bonus up to $1,000. That's promo code PEWTER to claim your first deposit bonus. College hoops, NBA, NHL, no matter the sport, no matter the minute, from tip-off to buzzer, MyBookie puts the action in your hands with live in-game betting. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Mark, I did not see the major upset last night in college basketball with USC knocking off the Kansas Jayhawks, but I didn't need to bet on that. I was just happy with the result of the game. I don't need to win any money. Anytime KU loses, it's always a good thing.
No, I'm with you on that. I actually didn't win any money last night on the Florida State game, but I won because they won. My new thing, here's my thing, Scott, is I bet against my favorite team. That way, if they lose, at least I'm going to win either way. So I lost a little bit of money taking Colorado last night. That's okay. Florida State advanced. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put some money on Michigan this week, but I'm going to do it not at MyCookie. Not a good idea. Don't use me as your bookie. Go to MyBookie. That's the place to go.
Use that promo code PEWTER. So as we're progressing through the draft here, we get to day 3, Mark. And the curious thing is the Buccaneers still don't have a running back yet. And I think they're going to get Leonard Fournette back. So that might take some of the pressure of getting a running back early off the table. So we go with that approach. And we get a running back, wide receiver, kick return guy, and Demetric Felton from UCLA. Smallish guy, about 5'9", 189 pounds, started at the Senior Bowl, had a touchdown in the game, and was really generating some buzz all week in practice. And Mark, there was a running back who played for the Buccaneers that was about 5'9", 189 pounds. Warwick Dunn, remember him?
No. Where did he go to school? I forgot. Oh, wait. Yes, I do. Florida State.
Yeah, he went to Florida State. The thing about Warwick Dunn is he really kind of defied the odds because, listen, there's not a lot of guys that can thrive as a running back with that size in the NFL, but hats off to Warwick Dunn. Nearly 11,000 yards between his career in Tampa and Atlanta. And I'm not saying this guy is Warwick Dunn. Warwick Dunn was a first-round talent. This guy is a mid-round, third, fourth-round talent. But the thing I like about Felton is he can catch the football. Why? Because he started out his career at UCLA as a wide receiver. And then he was moved to running back his senior year, where he rushed for 668 yards and 5 touchdowns, averaging 5.1 yards per carry. Oh, and by the way, he caught 22 passes out of the backfield for 159 yards. That's a healthy 7.2-yard average and 3 touchdowns. And so in addition to being a guy that can run the ball, catch the ball, he can also return kicks. He had a 100-yard kick return for a touchdown against Washington State in 2019. That was a game where he also had 150 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns, killing the Cougars that game. He averaged 26 yards per kick return that year. So this is a player that can really be that James White player, the guy that lines up in the backfield, can catch the ball, not just on swing passes out of the backfield or screens, Mark. He can run routes. He can run angle routes. Matter of fact, he had a 94-yard touchdown on a linebacker running an angle route against Washington State. And he can also run the route tree as a wide receiver. You put him out there for those smoke routes, for those wide receiver screens. He's the type of player that John Gruden would call a joker, because you can put him in any hand and win with. And I think in the 4th round, I think he would be a pretty solid addition that can help the Buccaneers with a couple of carries, end arounds, draws, screen passes.
Can he return kicks?
He can. Yeah, he can.
That's what they need.
Yeah, that's what they need.
Any more Jaden Mickens.
Or Cyril Grayson or Kenyon Barner, whoever they put out there.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, that's certainly a thing, Edward. We appreciate that. Yeah, feel free to hit that like button, hit subscribe, and Pewter Report fans, if you haven't subscribed to the Pewter Report podcast yet, do so on YouTube. All you got to do is go to Pewter Report TV on YouTube, click subscribe, and then hit that notifications button, and then you'll get a little ding every time we're going live. So make sure that you do that. We appreciate that. We go back to the defensive side, Mark, on day 3, and you and I are both big Will Golston fans, right? He's been with this franchise a long time. Was drafted under the Mark Dominic and Greg Schiano regime, and really has found a tremendous role on this team as a 3-4 defensive end, as a big 5-tech guy. The thing is Will is 30. And he's in the final year of his contract, so I think that's a position they need to get an heir apparent for. And why not replace one Golston with another? A little bit of a different pronunciation. This is Chauncey Golston we're talking about. No H in Golston, but he's a defensive end out of Iowa. Mark, they love these Hawkeyes. They got Anthony Nelson from Iowa 3 years ago, or I should say 2 years ago. Last year it was Tristan Wirfs. They could go back and hit the Hawkeyes up for Chauncey Golston. He played next to Davion Nixon, and I thought he outplayed him in several games. 6'5", 270 pounds. Not as big as Will Golston, but I think that he can add some size. 5.5 sacks last year, 3 sacks the year before, 3.5 sacks prior to that. He's more of a run stuffer, but he can play defensive tackle. He can play end. He's not going to be a stand-up edge rusher like a Jason Pierre-Paul or a Shaq Barrett. He's not an edge guy, but I think he's an ideal 5-tech, that defensive end spot in Tampa Bay's defense. And I think that he could compete and probably knock Jeremiah Ledbetter out of the mix for that depth spot, and then eventually become a starter.
And then they need, like, as you say, I mean, again, there's another position that the Buccaneers are going to have to be looking down the road to. And that would be good. Give him a year to kind of learn behind Will Golston. If the team does stick with Will Golston, people always ask us what could be a surprise cut this year. Will Golston's going to be making a lot of money this year, and he could be at the very least, could be asked to take a little bit of a pay cut. We'll see if that actually happens. But the thing about that position that's so important in Todd Bowles' defense is you just need a space eater. You need an occupier. You need a guy that's going to do the dirty work, that's going to occupy some guys and allow those edge rushers to get around the edge. And you also need this guy to set the edge in the run as well. And I think he is the guy that can do that. Is, again, looking at some of the tape that we saw of him and the ones you sent, I saw that. I saw a guy that's not afraid to do the dirty work. Then he's not going to get a ton of pats on the back. You're not going to get the flashy MVP type things after every type game, but you need those types of guys. And Will Golston has been extremely valuable, even if some fans may not see it. Obviously he has, because you don't stick around on a football team like the Buccaneers, on a bad football team like the Buccaneers up until this year, unless you're doing your job, because they're always looking to get better and replace guys when you're going 7-9 and 5-11. So for him to stick around as long as he has says a lot about Will Golston, what he brings to this football team. But I think this guy, and another Hawkeye, the Hawkeyes are going to become the LSU pipeline that Jason Light loves. Now they're going to add Iowa to that, and have 3 Hawkeyes if they were to take him.
They certainly might. The thing too that Jason Light and the Bucs scouting department like about defensive linemen are guys that if you don't get to the quarterback, put your hand up and knock those passes down. And Chauncey Golston, you've got a guy that in his 3 years as a starter at Iowa had a total of 7 pass breakups and 3 interceptions. When was the last time you saw 3 interceptions? He had a pick in each year at Iowa. And so what that shows is awareness. That shows pass rushing awareness. If you can't get to the quarterback for the sack or the hit, affect the quarterback by putting your hands up, creating some knockdown situations, some batted balls, and interceptions. So,
Scott, let's just call it like it is. He's a ball hawk. I mean, that's all there is to it. I mean, 3 picks.
The ball hawking defensive end, no doubt about it. Here's a real ball hawk for you. This guy in round 6, Arkansas State wide receiver Jonathan Adams Jr. Wow.
My favorite of your mock draft.
Yeah, I
You
know
sent
why.
me some more tape of him. I saw him in a game earlier this year, and he just stands out. I mean, he just on a team like Arkansas State, where you're not familiar with any of the players. By the time you get done watching an Arkansas State game, you know this kid's name. He just dominated. There was a game this year, Scott. I can't remember who it was. It was some really bad team that wears gray and purple from Manhattan, New York. The Wild Cards
Kansas
or
State
something.
Wildcats is who you're
Oh
talking
yeah,
about.
that Manhattan, a different one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And listen,
you guys don't ever want to see him again.
No, he destroyed us. He had 6 catches for 98 yards, 3 touchdowns in Arkansas State's upset at Manhattan. And this was the guy that caught the game-winning touchdown with about 38 seconds left in the game. He will go up and high point the ball, 6'2", 210. He's a big physical receiver. Kind of reminds me of Chris Godwin in that respect. Although this guy, I think he's got longer arms, and he makes incredibly acrobatic catches. You look at the production. He's averaged about 14 yards per catch in his college career, so he can get down the field. He's not going to blow by people like Scotty Miller, but he's got that sneaky speed, like a Mike Evans, like Chris Godwin, where he can create some separation. 62 catches, 851 yards, and 5 touchdowns in kind of a breakout year in 2019. That's in 13 games. They only played 10 games last year, but he had 79 catches for 1,111 yards, averaged 14 yards per catch with 12 touchdowns. Now watch this guy's highlight tape, because he makes some amazing one-handed catches. He mosses people. But what really stuck out to me at the end of the highlight tape, and it's 10 minutes, and trust me, a lot of highlight tapes have some filler in it. This is all hits. This is like Michael Jackson's Thriller. Like, there's not a bad song on there. But the run blocking, Mark, to see this guy absolutely punish people as a perimeter run blocker. You want help in the running game? You want to get your running game going? Get a perimeter blocker out there that can turn a 10-yard gain by a running back into a 40 or 50-yard touchdown. And that's what this guy does. And what that tells me is if he's that physical on offense, he's going to be a hell of a special teams contributor. And when you're drafting guys in the 6th and 7th round, Mark, that's where you got to look for help on special teams. And so people are thinking, well, why would you want to draft another wide receiver? Because you can never have enough good wide receivers. The Bucs found that out the hard way in 2019. They were on the verge of going 9-7 with Jameis Winston at quarterback. And all of a sudden, Winston didn't have anybody to throw to. That's out of Rashad Perriman and Justin Watson. Because you had
Ishmael Hyman. Don't forget Ishmael Hyman.
Ishmael Hyman, come on now. You have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller, all sidelined with hamstring injuries. That's why they went out and got Antonio Brown, just to prevent a situation like that from happening again. Thankfully, those guys stayed healthy pretty much throughout the season, especially down the stretch. But Mark, you can never have enough good wide receivers, and that's the thing where you're looking at Antonio Brown. If he comes back, it's a 1-year deal. Justin Watson hasn't shown me anything other than being a special teams guy. He's not developed. We don't know enough about Tyler Johnson yet, but the kid's got a lot of promise in the future. But it doesn't hurt to get a guy to replace maybe Justin Watson on that depth chart, and I like what I saw from Jonathan Adams.
No, I did too, Scott. I really like that. I mean, again, it's not easy picking the first couple guys, but those are more household names, right? You've seen these guys. I love it when you pull a rabbit out of your hat with a guy that maybe is at a smaller school, but he just jumps out on the tape. And they played some solid competition. Not like Arkansas State was playing nothing but directional schools this year.
Right.
I mean, some of his best games came against some of the better teams. And as you say, he's a very physical guy. I don't know that he has, but you almost would suspect he's got a basketball background, because the way, particularly in the end zone, in the red zone, the way he boxes guys out, and he's got such a large catch radius and a wide frame up top. I mean, your Kansas State cornerback, I think he got burned for 2 touchdowns. The one guy that plays the right cornerback side, I don't know who he is, but twice in the red zone he got burned, and he just shook his head. He's like, I mean, I did everything I could do. He played perfect technique. Sometimes you just can't win when a guy is that big and that strong and that physical.
And that was a big game for Jonathan Adams, because when you're playing in the Sun Belt Conference like Arkansas State, you're not going up against great competition. I think that's why he's going to be a day 3 guy, is because he put up a lot of big numbers, but it wasn't against FBS, Power 5 schools, and that win at Kansas State, that made me a believer. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
But he ran a 4.45, so he's not a burner. Doesn't create a whole bunch of separation, but he's one of those guys that even when he's covered, you throw him the ball because he'll go up and get it. He's open.
And something that I was impressed with the game film, and when people watch it, when they look at the highlight video, Scott has it attached to his mock draft, which is up on pewterreport.com right now, is I like the way that he worked against the zone, settling in between the cornerback and the safety as well. You can tell he's a pretty headsy, smart football player as well. It's not a guy that just runs down the field and says, throw it up to me and I'll catch the ball, although he does that very well. Yes, he works very good against the zone and reading what the safeties are doing as well, and finding that soft spot and settling down and again seems to always make the catch. Probably not a lot of drops this year.
Yeah, and he's a smart guy, and if you want to be smart too, I'm going to tell you where to go for that. You're going to go to Symbol, and the reason why I say you're going to go to Symbol is because it's the stock market for sports that allows you to trade sports teams like stocks and earn cash payouts when your team wins. Symbol has blended sports and the stock market to offer you a new way to invest in and profit off your favorite teams. Use the sports knowledge to buy low, sell high, and earn cash payouts when your team wins. Join the over 2,500 plus early adopters, including myself, who have started to invest in their favorite teams. The stock market for sports is just a tap away. Create a free account in seconds and start profiting from your sports knowledge. Mark, the Bucs franchise has jumped from $37 to $44 this week. If you want to find out how to get a $10 deposit bonus, go to symbol.app, Pewter Report, and use the promo code Pewter when you sign up, and you will get that $10 deposit bonus. So highly encourage people to check out that new innovative way to bet on stocks and intertwine some fantasy football in there. So as we round out our mock draft, this is our third one. We've got two more coming. We're going to have one in early April, and then we're going to have one right about the week before the draft. That'll be our final one. We've got another familiar face. We had Quinn Miners in our first mock draft. We also had this guy. Had him a little higher than he probably should have gone in the first mock. We had him in the 4th round. But we think he's definitely a day 3 guy, but probably closer to the 7th round. BYU defensive tackle Khyiris Tonga. 6'4", 320 pounds. He's kind of like a poor man's Vita Vea. That's not a bad thing, though, because Vita Vea was out last year with some injuries. With that fractured ankle, he was fortunate enough to come back and help the Buccaneers. But I think with Steve McClendon likely retiring at age 35, they need another bigger defensive tackle in there. The jury's still out on Khalil Davis, Mark. But getting a guy like Khyiris Tonga, 6'4", 320 pound, more of a run stuffer. But he did have 3.5 sacks last year for BYU, 5 pass breakups. Matter of fact, he has had, and you look at his entire career, 12 pass breakups. So he's one of those guys Jason Light likes, that if you can't get to the quarterback, get your hand up and swat those passes down at the line of scrimmage. 2 forced fumbles in his career. But I like the fact that he can really provide some beef in the middle. And I thought that was lacking a little bit when Vita Vea was out, not having that size in the middle of the Bucs defense. You're on mute there, Mark. You've muted yourself. Are you there, Mark? Well, while you're working that out, I'm gonna go back to the mock draft. We've got Khyiris Tonga in the 7th round. And then the Buccaneers have another 7th round pick, a couple picks later to end the draft. Boston College inside linebacker Isaiah Mcduffie, 6'1", 224. This guy's pro day isn't until March 26th. But when you look at his 40-yard dash time, he's expected to be one of the faster linebackers in this draft. And Mark, when you look at the 7th round, there's really been 2 positions Jason Light has honed in on. It's been the defensive tackle position. It's also been the inside linebacker position. And they just drafted a guy, Chappelle Russell, last year, who didn't make the squad, or actually he made the team, but they cut him during the middle part of the season. But I think that he is a player that can come in, help out on special teams. That's what you're looking for. So defensive tackle and linebacker, Jason Light follows suit, Mark, and gets a player like Tonga, and then it gets a guy that can help out on special teams. And Mcduffie from Boston College.
Jack Sitchie's replacement. Poor Jack can't stay healthy. I mean, but you're right. The linebackers are prime candidates for special teams units. He's an athletic guy, like you say. He's probably going to run really good with his 40 time. Again, he's got limitations as far as you don't want him taking over for Devin White, at least not right away. There's a reason why he would be a 7th round draft pick. But I mean, there's some things to like about this guy. It's going to be harder and harder, though, Scott, for these, again, 5 years ago, I mean, you were hoping 5th, 6th, 7th round guys make your team and contributed in some way. It's just all a luxury at this point. That's a great thing to have. And again, it's hard to believe that it's happened in this short period of a time. But again, finding guys that are going to be contributors on special teams is huge. And Mcduffie could be that guy.
Ed was asking about which wide receiver we were talking about. It's Arkansas State wide receiver Jonathan Adams Jr. He is the 6th round pick in our latest mock draft available on Pewter Report.
Watch the highlights of all the highlights. I loved his highlights of all of these picks the most.
Fun player. How about Cyril Grayson? No.
Scott's favorite player. It's Ryan Suckup. It's Tom Brady. Then it's Cyril Grayson.
In that
order. No.
Tonga does have some potential. He's working the pass rush. Agreed. What about Darius Stills from West Virginia, the defensive tackle? I've watched a lot of Big 12 football, familiar with Stills. Better than his brother. His brother plays for the Mountaineers too. I like him. He's just really undersized. I think he's 6'1", 6'2", about 280 pounds, maybe even 279. He's a great fit for that classic 3 technique, that one gap penetrator in a 4-3 defense. I just don't know if he has the size to play in this Todd Bowles scheme. They like those defensive tackles, 300 pounds or more. And even with Chauncey Gold playing around 270 pounds, he needs to probably add about 10 pounds if the Buccaneers draft him.
Will Golston did that. Will Golston added some weight when he got here from Michigan State. And I mean, when you see guys, and again, we didn't see anybody in the locker room last year, but Will Golston was one of those guys who was just a massive man and just a chiseled, not chiseled, but just a big guy, you know what I mean? And we saw him grow. And again, when you're in the locker room and you see these guys for 6-7 years, like we've seen with a guy like Will Golston, just amazed at the amount of muscle compared to when we first saw him as a rookie, when we saw him 2 years ago in the locker room.
Yep. Long lost Lazier with a great point here. If we're going small school Arkansas, what about Robert Rochelle from Central Arkansas? Seems to fit our Bowles profile for cornerback. Yes, and we had Robert Rochelle in our last mock draft. Had him in the 7th round. It's probably a little late. Probably a 5th round guy, but definitely a day 3 guy. Small school prospect. We like him, and you're right. He is a Bucs fit. He might be our Bucs best bet for the rounds 4 through 7 when it's all said and done. So we're gonna have that coming up for you with our draft previews, Mark, in just a couple weeks on PewterReport.com. Is Sapp still coming on? Nope, he is stuck in traffic. So after yesterday's Wi-Fi issues, he was driving to his mom's house, not just to be on the Pewter Report podcast and steal mom's Wi-Fi for that, but also because he wanted to see mom and get some home-cooked meals, but stuck in traffic.
And he sent Scott his GPS. I mean, he wasn't just saying that. He sent a video and he sent Scott the GPS saying, hey, man, this is what's going on right now. And I'll tell you, I don't know if anybody's traveled in Florida in the last 2 weeks. Don't.
It's unpredictable.
It is. The roads are outrageous. We went to Jacksonville and St. Augustine this weekend, and it was a madhouse on the streets. Last night, where were we going? We went to, I'll give him a free plug, Scott, one of our favorite restaurants, Mr. Dunderbox up in North Tampa. And on 75, just wall-to-wall traffic, and I didn't recognize any of the state's license plates. There weren't many Florida ones. At least they were heading north, but it's just a madhouse right now. So it's not surprising that Sapp, who was coming from South Florida up towards the Orlando area, ran into a ton of traffic for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And, Mark, I'm going to have to do this to you. Usually I do it to John and see his expressions, but it is time for the Manscaped read, which I know Buccaneer fans always love. And
Can we mute my camera? I could barely hold it together when John read the last one. This one's going to be a doozy, I have a feeling. But I'm going to try and keep a straight face. Ready?
NFL draft season's upon us. It's possible that you might have Trevor Lawrence's haircut, but in your pants. That's why our partners at Manscaped, the leaders in below-your-waist grooming, have partnered with us to make sure that you don't gamble on shaving your balls the same way that you like to gamble on football. for all the draft geeks out there, we've been talking about draft stuff. We're going to have more draft stuff coming as we get closer to the draft. But we got this exclusive promo. It's a 20% off promo code, and you probably know what it is. It's this one right here. I'm going to put it up on the board. Let me find it here. Manscaped. Boom. There we go. 20% off when you use the promo code Pewter. That's all you got to do. Now,
that's it?
That's it. Use the promo code Pewter. You save 20% and you get an absolutely free shipping offer. It's tough to beat. So will your favorite team go defensive back in the first round? Not sure, but I am sure with the Lawnmower 3.0, which is this guy right here, you can get your D back. Because of the ceramic blade and skin-safe technology, your nicks and snags are going to be reduced. This is the perfect protection needed for your franchise quarter balls. I want you to look in the mirror. Not right now, but after the podcast. Do you see any nose hair or ear hairs hanging out? Look, fellas, 79% of the partners polled admitted that long nose hair is a major turnoff. So take care of that with this guy right here. Mark, I know you and I are big fans of this because we're getting up there in age. This is the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. It's the solution. So why not use the best tools for the job there? The performance package comes with the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0, the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer, performance boxer briefs, Mark, which are the best boxer briefs that you're going to have. They're
very nice.
Boxers have ever tried on. And this travel bag that they call the Shed right here that you're going to use to carry around all of your great Manscaped items, including a couple of their liquid formulations like the Crop Reviver and the Crop Preserver. Okay, the Crop Preserver is anti-chafing ball deodorant that ensures that your afternoon stroll doesn't end with your balls sticking to your legs or smelling like eggs. The Crop Reviver is a spray-on toner for your balls, and it's made with soothing aloe and witch hazel extract, which gives your guys down there a little bit of a boost. For a limited time, subscribers not get one, but two free gifts. You get the Shed travel bag, which is a $39 value. This is a nice bag. And the patented high-performance anti-chafing Manscaped boxer briefs. And you get the 20% off and free shipping by using the promo code Pewter at Manscaped.com. Pewter at Manscaped.com is going to get you all of that. And it's going to get you some cleanly shaven balls.
And that's crucial. It is 2021, guys. It's not 1974. Everybody knows I'm a big 70s guy. Well, I was born in 1970, but I'm not 100% living in the 70s. And thanks to Manscaped, I'm not, because prior to our trying out the product, I was probably living in the 70s. Now I've at least made it up to like the mid 90s. But I do love the ball spray and the Crop Preserver. Those things are wonderful. And I have, it's amazing. My balls do not stick to anything anymore.
And you know what?
Beautiful.
Again, the read's over. We're just shooting you straight here, guys. I would never probably have bought this stuff.
No.
If they hadn't sent it to us for free, I wouldn't have used it. But they did send it to us for free, and I have used it, and it's awesome. It's a great product. And what else is great too is we still have some of these Pewter Report T-shirts to give away. So if you want a Pewter Report T-shirt, comes in white, black, or gray. All you got to do is make a purchase at Manscaped using that promo code Pewter. And then send me via email your receipt, your proof of purchase, sr@pewterreport.com. Easy to remember, sr@pewterreport.com. Doesn't have any of your financial information on it, so that's cool. I want to keep all that.
Send that to me. Send me all your. I'll take the financial information, not the Scott. Go ahead.
But send that to me, and we'll send you a free shirt plus free shipping, so you can't beat that. So it's a great deal.
Scott will autograph the shirt. If you want it autographed, Scott will autograph it. No,
I'm not gonna autograph the shirt. That's gonna reduce the value. Plus, the ink will wear off in the wash too. So why waste a perfectly good shirt? So appreciate that, Edward. Appreciate everybody tuning in.
Thanks, Eddie.
Today. Warren Sapp apologizes. He texted me, but he couldn't make it. A couple of quick little tidbits. He's not a huge fan of Jalen Phillips or Gregory Rousseau. This is a guy that watched an awful lot of Miami football.
Sure.
A lot of times down there on the sidelines. Doesn't see.
And remember, he's got connections down there. He talked to these coaches. He's got relationships down there. And if Sapp is not high on a Miami guy, there's a reason. And sometimes it's more than just game film.
he actually likes Quincy Rochelle the best. Thinks that he has got some dog in him and some tools and traits to work with. It wasn't like saying they should draft the guy in the first round or whatever, but as a mid-round guy, Quincy Rochelle is a player. Also like Joseph Acai. We talked about that today on the phone, Warren and I. He thinks that there's an upside there. Also likes one of my draft crushes, Ellerson Smith from Northern Iowa, the big kid that played at the Senior Bowl and played really well. I think I had him in my mock draft in my battle plan. Ellerson Smith, big 6'6", 260-pound guy. Physically, he looks like Jason Taylor. He is a ways off from being in Jason Taylor's caliber, but as a day 3 developmental guy, he had 14 sacks in 2019 for Northern Iowa. He can block kicks with those long arms, force fumbles. He's a bit of a dog too. This guy's a hustler, and I like the energy he plays with. I thought he showed very well at the Senior Bowl for a guy that did not that did not play football last year. A lot of these small school guys, Quinn Miners, Ellerson Smith. If you're not playing FBS football, guess what? I mean, you didn't play last year, and that makes it a little tougher for those evaluations with these NFL scouts. But the thing about Ellerson Smith is, he did post some really good numbers at his pro day. 41.5-inch vertical jump, a 10.7 broad jump. Actually, it weighed 252 pounds. I said 260. He was 252. And he ran a 4.74, that's a pretty good time for a big guy like that. Really, really long arms and a massive wingspan. So looking for a day 3 developmental edge rusher, Ellerson Smith from Northern Iowa got the thumbs up from Warren Sapp. So some pretty good stuff from Sapp I can relay to you if you were on the show yesterday. He gave me some more in-depth stuff about Christian Barmore off the record that I'm not going to share. But, man, I would pass on the guy at 32. I'm just telling you that.
We got to get Warren on at some point. We're not going to make any promises. We may just surprise you with a Warren Sapp, but you may just turn on the podcast one day and Warren Sapp might be on the screen.
Hey,
but anyway.
We're on Warren's time, living in Warren's world. We're just here for the ride when it comes to Warren Sapp.
That's a fact. You never know what you're going to get from Warren Sapp. One thing I want to say before we get out of here, Scott, is Pewter Report is setting all-time records in web traffic, and we're getting impressions that I never would have thought of even 4 or 5 years ago that we would be at. Our unique visitors coming to the website, the page views, those kind of things, the numbers that we're getting on the podcast. You can just look on our YouTube page. You can see how many streams that it's getting each episode. There's not a better time to advertise with Pewter Report than right now. You can contact myself, Scott, or John at any point. I'm Mark at pewterreport.com. Scott is SR at pewterreport.com. I'm not sure what John's is, so I guess he doesn't get a plug. But all right, there you go. It's that simple. Get in touch with one of us and let us show you. There's no, again, like we say with Briar Greaves, you're not obligated to anything. Let us help your business or even a company that you work for, even if you're not the owner. Get your person that's in charge of marketing in touch with one of the 3 of us and help us out at pewterreport.com. Great specials, great deals right now. And for people who say, well, I want to wait till the season starts, the draft, free agency, this time of year, mini camps upcoming, our web traffic doesn't drop. In fact, in some years, it's actually better in the spring than it is during football season.
Month of the year, every year. It's April because of the interest in the draft. And nobody covers the draft like pewterreport.com. So check out pewterreport.com with our latest mock draft. And guess what? It doesn't end tomorrow. We got John Ledyard's first round mock draft. His latest version would be coming out tomorrow. And we're still tracking and checking in with our sources at One Buck Place. They're still on the hunt for Ndamukong Suh, for Leonard Fournette, for Antonio Brown, and they look to have Blaine Gabbert back too. So make sure that you stay tuned to pewterreport.com and our Twitter account at Pewter Report.
Vote for us on Twitter right now against Jill Beckman. Love Jill, don't get me wrong. If we lose to her, it's not the end of the world.
It would be fantastic to lose to her, but we'd like to win too. I'm not going to lie.
Go to our Pewter Report account and give us a vote if you will. Thank you.
And John Ledyard will be back on the Pewter Report podcast tomorrow. His suspension has been lifted, Mark. So
good.
He'll be back tomorrow.
That means I'm probably suspended, right?
Yeah, I think you will enter suspension. Yeah, it's just like in hockey. Like one guy comes out of the penalty box, another guy goes in. So that's how we do it on the Pewter Report podcast. Thank you all for joining us for our latest edition of the Pewter Report podcast. For Mark Cook, I'm Scott Reynolds saying we'll see you back tomorrow here with another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.